All right, so welcome everyone to our third night of the budget process. Tonight we'll start with Parks and Rec, then move on to the library, then go on to the capital program. Parks and Rec Director Pam Blue.
If I say so far.
The down arrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Lots of familiar faces. Welcome to Vicky. Vicky was my concession chair for many years when our kids were much younger. There's a long history there, so it's Old Home Day connecting. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually entering my 40th year. Working with Town of Topsham. Started part-time. Well, Michael still has me beat, unfortunately. But this will be my 40th starting in June. So, been here a while, so to speak. We started slow at part-time, and then built it up from there. Our Parks and Recreation budget consists of myself, the director, our program coordinator, Kelly LaFountain. We have a numerous amount of program assistants. Dominic or Nick Vermette, as many of you know, has been in absentia this year. He works for a Canadian power company and actually has been restoring power to Jamaica. Thank you. So he's been gone all winter, and he normally is our stable ground for the winter times, working in the gyms on evenings and on Saturdays with us. Jerry has been with us ever since he left being full-time. He's worked part-time for us as well, covering in the evenings at field or at the gyms and on Saturdays when needed. Steve Kessler and Alex LaFountain have both stepped up to the plate this winter to help us out with Nick's absence. So we've been able to get through it fairly smooth with people who are familiar with the facilities and what's going on. As well as all of them, we have two staff that are, one that's currently vacant, but hopefully soon filled, whose primary role is to maintain the parks and recreation facilities, but are in the public works budget and support the priority needs for the public works department. So they no longer are in our budget, but you would have seen them in Dennis's budget last night, right? Last night. And then we have approximately 25 students and stipend and part-time people, and over 150 coaches and program volunteers. Probably the one thing I tell you that's the most valued change that we've done, and for those of you who used to have kids in our programs, we used to do everything on paper and do everything through the office, through Excel and database. And approximately 4 years ago, we went over to the MyRec system, which allows us to manage registration online, track attendance, track paperwork, communicate with our email listserv, and everything is inclusive for a nice price of $4,200 a year. And that is in the central service budget. So it's not in our budget either, but it is something that provides a great service to us. If you take a look at our budget, in general, we've been relatively on a steady course for a few years, keeping everything maintained. We do have a 7% increase this year in our budget, 5% in full-time payroll. The 36% in part-time payroll shouldn't be as scary as it looks, because I've worked with Kathy, our finance person, and we have now moved what used to keep all of our basketball referees, baseball umpires, soccer officials in the program lines. We have now moved them all into the part-time payroll. That's why you see the increase, but it's moved from the other places. And that allows us to have a real number when we're talking about FICA and Medicare and workers' comp, because now we can base it on that number. Another reason that the part-time payroll is up, minimum wage is $15.10. It's a pretty decent pay for high school kids. And we work well with a lot of the high school students. They work for us on the weekends, covering either soccer or basketball or baseball for limited. And so this is a nice part-time job where they can play sports and still have a part-time job while they're in school. The other side of that increase is because we have adult pay increases. If we're gonna pay the kids $15.10, then we have to put the people who are in charge and deposit them. And so we've worked that into the budget as well. The other major thing I think you'll see is the increase. I'll address the loan line and pesticides in a moment, but you'll see we decreased in Halloween and soccer and some of the other ones because we're not doing the payroll for them so much. So that's why it rounds out as it does. Our biggest increase, which looks scary, is loan line and pesticide. Last winter, last spring, we had a horrific experience. Mark noticed it as he drove by every morning on the way to work, where the ash trees along the Foreside Road were barren. And the winter moss had gotten to them. And so last year we were fortunate to contract with Welltree out of Brunswick, and they were able to spray our trees early in the morning on a day when it was going to be warm and sunny. And within 2 weeks, we actually saw a huge and big change in that. And that cost us now round a tune to about $1,800 to spray. Those winter moths we believe them to be a cyclic of 2 to 3 years. So we anticipate needing to spray again this year. And we anticipate also needing to treat for the injections for the Emerald Ash Borer, because all of those trees that are along Foreside that are older than I am, or longer than I've been here, are starting to get to the age where the borer could attack them any time. And we do know that there are some Emerald Ash Borer in the area. So the increase that you see in our budget primarily is to take care of the trees in the roadside where we have right now. Our revenues were maintaining at the same level that we were last year. For those of you who are new, we generally see the revenues balance out our programs. So that's what we try to have the two work in tune with each other. So if you took a look at what comes in, what gets spent in a program line, you could match that up. We end up bringing in a little more revenue than we do spend. But that is how it is set up to work for the programs that we offer. And I know Mark's doing the capital program a little bit later tonight, but I did include this in the final step of my presentation. The backstop that we have at Foreside has been there since 1979. And it is one field that has been named Crosby Field. For those of you who remember Charlie Crosby Sr., who was a member of the Recreation Committee for many years. Approximately, I want to think 8 years ago, the select board decided to name that field after Charlie. And you can kind of see the little green sign that's up there, Crosby Field, but the backstop is in dire need. We've had them come down and repair it a few times, but that is the one thing that really has to have some major attention. And these are just a few photographs to just show you what needs to be done. And you have questions? I'm here.
I do that.
I have a couple questions, Pam, just quick ones.
And I just got preempted.
He was speaking.
Oh, I didn't even hear you talk, I'm so sorry. Sorry.
So it's like a trend I've noticed in previous years where we have a lot of money budgeted for this year and the coming year. And the year-to-date spending isn't even close. Like, for example, supplies. We had $1,800 budgeted for 26, we got $1,800 for next year, we only spent $300.
This year so far.
Right, and since 23, we spent 1,200, 182, and 422. So how are we justifying $1,800?
I'll be honest with you, Bill, we've kept that budget line the same for many years, simply because what our needs are and depends on the season, and that's a lot, very much unpredictable. This year in particular, I can tell you we need to replace and put a storage area down on the softball field. It really tends to be dependent upon what we need on that particular year.
But that comes out of the supplies line.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't spend a lot of time going over, but there's just there's a couple ones that. I have.
I won't spend it if we don't need it. I think that, I've kind of established that over the years. I normally
Well, I
run
understand that, but are you
negative.
running a surplus? Have you run surplus?
The surplus goes into the general fund. It's not, I mean, if it is surplus, it goes back to the general fund.
It does go back to the general fund. If she doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Unless we actually ask the select board, which we do every September-ish.
What we never have for this budget.
We never what with this budget?
Kathy said there's certain items we might ask to carry over, like we carried over consultant fees to help pay for the recode. We've never asked to carry over anything in the rec budget. So if this doesn't get spent, it goes to basically be available to select board to allocate towards offsetting taxes for the next year.
Right. Yeah, my concern is that, we're again, to channel my inner David Douglas, is that we're taxing people money we're not spending. And then it's just going back into the general fund. Seems to me we should try not to be taxing the people in the first place, so we wouldn't have so much money to go back in, so it sort of works out in that regard. That is what my concern is, especially when we, this budget, last year's budget. In some of the proposals we've seen, particularly from the the police department, and things of that nature, that, we're again getting into an unsustainable growth as far as the mill rate and tax rate is concerned. It comes to a point that, and you hear the same stories about how people are being squeezed, and the federal government is no help. We got so little we can do at our own level. It's just concerning. I guess that's just how I'll leave it. Go ahead, Brian, I bored yours.
I'm sorry that I interrupted you, I didn't hear when you were talking.
It's not a problem.
And the thing is, I'm gonna echo exactly what you're saying, because that's what my question was about, is justifying that line, but more or less, what would we consider supplies that we would take out of that? Not a storage shed, but just supplies in general.
Supplies in general could be, posts for the head of tide park, if we need to replace posts, if we don't have enough in the loam line fertilizer. We don't, it generally is the one line item that I have that we use for those types of things that don't come up every year, but do come up that we have to maintain and take care of. And that could be, equipment that we hadn't budgeted for in a particular program, or that could be, a need at the rec field to supplies. Like last year, we ended up working with the baseball group to refurbish the Riverside field. And there were some things that were needed that hadn't been budgeted elsewhere that we would have used from there.
And when we did that, we still are only spending $182, $422. And
We
maybe
try not, yeah.
so we don't really get to that, and that's where I agree with you. I know we budget that amount every year, but in years where our budgets are just going up and up and up more and more, it just draws a, I don't want to say red flag in my mind. It just seems like an amount that far supersedes, or far exceeds rather, anything that we've spent historically, or at least in the
In
recent.
the last recent years, I can tell you, prior to the last few, when we did hold the Valentine dance or things such as that, the father-daughter dance, that was where supplies came out of. So any kind of special event like that, moving forward, I mean, I could honestly see that should the community center committee decide to hold an event or something, the supplies might come out of that. If we don't have it budgeted somewhere else. I'm not saying that's where it's coming, that would be the manager's discretion, but Those are the type of things that used to come out of that budget line. The last 3 years, COVID kind of killed our dance, and we've held on to it with the hopes of a community-wide event. But it all's dependent upon a few things.
Thank you.
Sure.
On the revenue side of the tables, it's a similar question, kind of in reverse, kind of. In reverse, like, for example, if I look at. Basketball revenues in 23, it was 17,000, in 24 was 20,000 and change. 25 was 20,000. And we're budgeting $22,000 as far as anticipated revenue.
We've added a couple of new programs. The 7th and 8th grade program this year has expanded. And we have people who are ready to try to expand that even more next year. So that's kind of put in there, expecting to see revenues on the other side.
But it wasn't changed. We put 22,000 in 26 and 22,000 for next year. If it's growing this year, great. Wouldn't we want to expect higher revenues than last year?
Until I see it the first year, I don't like projecting more.
And the other one was, I think. That was. Like the. Running program's growing, I
Yeah.
see that, I know that in those numbers, the ski program is kind of growing.
Ski program is only revenue. It doesn't cost us anything to run, and it's all dependent upon how many people who sign up for it. Last year, we brought in $900 in revenue. It's based upon the number of people who purchased through the mountain.
And it's in looking at, is baseball and softball shrinking?
Baseball and softball are both shrinking. Baseball primarily has shrunk because we took the 9 to 12-year-old program out of our budget a few years ago. During COVID, they separated and became their own entity and have their own board and run. They do use our facility, but they don't, we don't collect any registration fees. Softball, we still have some minor control on it. That's starting to go the other way, but it hasn't happened yet. There's a new group of people with softball that are trying to expand.
Perfect. Thank you for those clarifying
Sure.
points.
Anyone else?
I wanna go back to your supplies, because it sounds like that's kind of a little bit shortcoming in terms of the description of it, if you're doing things like shots and stuff. You know, it may be for clarification in the future, we can call it something supplies and something else, that, I don't know what, but it.
Contingent, that would be up to the finance director. Kathy, what would you like to call it?
I could certainly call it that if it.
Oh, yeah, when I see supplies, I think about a ream of paper and
Yeah.
pencils.
That's office supplies.
Right,
Talking about balls and nets, and that's what I think of when I think of athletics.
I try to charge things back to the program that's relevant to them, as long as we're within the right. As long as we have collected the right revenue and things match up, I will charge it back there, but I have used it on occasion when we've been close.
But if I'm hearing you correctly, that's more than balls and stuff that you're looking to, having to spend the money on this.
When we had the Valentine dance, that paid for the DJ, that provided the decorations, that helped with the food and the drinks that were provided. We
You were
had
talking
revenue
about
that came
shed
in
as
this,
well,
yeah.
right? So that's a little more of a permanent structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
More than happy to change the name if you feel it's misleading, or, program supplies, or
sorry. Usually gone.
I mean, because I'm with Bill, I hear you.
yeah, I certainly understand where you're coming from and how you see it, the word.
Program supplies might be a little more.
I think the biggest thing is labeling it in such a way, and part of our role here is to scrutinize a lot of things, and
Mhm.
by no means that's all we're doing, is we're trying to figure it out, but when a taxpayer is contributing towards something and it has a certain line item, it's expected that, we spend only that on there, so finding a way to align what we're spending our money with out of the right budget item. It seems like there could be a different line, or, you know, defining the supplies a little bit more would be more appropriate, but. I mean, the numbers do jump out at you, which kind of turned into this conversation that we're having now, so I don't know what the solution is. But I do agree, I think that if we're calling it supplies, that we should only spend that money on supplies and nothing else. And whatever supplies means, I don't know if we can exaggerate it into a DJ, because I don't know if that's a supply or if that's a.
Then it probably should be program supplies. I think it should be edited and changed to something like that if it's gonna, you know, that's just the way it has run in the.
How about program needs or in events? Supplies and events.
Yeah.
You know, how about program costs, so that way
I like that.
you sort of get it, it's either a supply or it could be a service.
Pam, Ryan asked me a question earlier that I didn't know the answer to, maybe I figured it out, but the difference between mileage and transportation is mileage for like a
Mileage is
reimbursement.
reimbursement for
Yeah,
anyone who goes and does something or attends a conference, that type of thing. Although the fee is paid through dues and memberships, the cost to travel is paid through there. There are several times that I have to drive up to pick up uniforms or something such as that, or to go to Augusta for something, and that's what that is. Transportation is for when, and we talked about this when I did my budget presentation, whether we should keep it or not. The transportation line has been something that has been in there when we were busing youth to a program or to some place, and I needed to pay for their transportation. There are some times with our lacrosse program where, and this is 3 years ago, because since COVID, the school department hasn't been able to provide it to us. But we would buy services from them to transport a lacrosse team that might have to go over an hour and a half or something. And our junior high program, and we would purchase it, and that's how we would pay for it. Or if we had a special event, we have on occasion back when there were more people in the office and we could leave the office, had the office coverage. We might do a trip, a senior trip. We often worked with the Mirror-Meters who used to exist in Topsham. And it would help to subsidize the trip fee. Since COVID, we haven't used it for anything. We've tried to kind of be cautious.
Do we anticipate using any of that transportation money this year?
We talked about it. I'll be honest with you, Ryan, it was one of those that I'm not, I mean, if we had to buckle down, it's probably one of those we could cut some. I'm not fighting to defend that one. It's just existed there at that amount for a long time. Ideally, I'd like us to be able to do trips.
And without that, you wouldn't be able to do a trip, right?
Well, it would subsidize the cost. I mean, renting a bus is no cheap fee these days. I think when Jerry retired and we kept only one other position, we didn't have the 2.5 or the almost 2 3/4 position in the department. We were able to send someone or put someone in a bus or on a trip or something, or I was able to leave. That hasn't happened recently.
I would maybe think of a solution to this as considering. In the transportation line, it hasn't been used in 23, 24, 25, or yet to date this year. We did budget for it in 26 and we're budgeting for it in 27 again. I would think that if we don't use a budget line for a certain period of years and we're continually budgeting for it, that it would be appropriate to remove. I don't know what that period of time is. Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? It looks like this would be the second year of putting it in. And if we put this in and we don't use it again, I would probably just suggest that we don't budget for it next year.
Or at a minimum, you could, like someone mentioned earlier, have the contingency to just more general. So you can cover lots of little things that might pop up.
That works. I hate to say or to answer with because that's the way we. But I mean, there are some things like that that I try to maintain for the option,
Mm,
so. Okay,
thank you.
library,
Library's next.
there you go. Oh, yeah,
There we go.
I got you.
Oh, I did have one more question for Pam.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, fine.
It was the pesticide thing, that big jump that we're gonna see at 7,200 this year. Do we foresee keeping that as a line item budget for continuing years moving forward for the fields as well as the trees?
I think that, I know we put pesticide, I'm not sure if that's the appropriate terminology we should have there. The Emerald Ash Borer will need treatment every 3 years once we do the injections. The winter moth is all dependent upon how long before they return. There are a lot of trees on hillside in particular that 2 years ago we did have to spray. For those, the money didn't come from my budget, the money came from the revenue that we made off of cleaning the trees on hillside. So we had to do it, it wasn't a question of can we knew we had to, or we were gonna have a real bigger issue.
Right.
So that's what we did at the time.
Like add a little more.
So that doesn't go for. This increased cost is more for trees than it is for lawns.
There-
Absolutely.
Okay,
So again, I saw the last spring what was happening, called Jeff Gillis. He came and looked at it. Cause I was afraid it was the Emerald Ash Borer. In fact, I had Josh with me, because Josh is a landscape architect. And we saw some little holes, so we thought maybe it's here. Jeff came and looked, he said, no, it's the winter moth, which if you noticed by Hunter's Farm at one point last summer, there were like no leaves left on the trees. And so Jeff said, if I spray these trees now, was what really May, he said the leaves should come back by July. She was right, it happened. So he's already looked at whatever he looks at and said to us, do you want to get this done again? Because it looks like it needs to be. So we've signed up to do that again. As far as the Emerald Ash Borer, he said, you may have seen like in Massachusetts, like Springfield, they had to cut down every ash tree, there's nothing left. And Jeff said it's now on the Brunswick side of the Androscoggin as of last spring, but near River Road, and I think he said there was somewhere downriver too. So he said it's just a matter of time. So he said if these were important trees, which we viewed them as, because Kathy Hunter remembers when she was on the rec committee in the 80s and they were planted as little trees and they look really nice.
Yeah.
And he said, if you inject them, they've got a good chance of surviving. If you don't inject them, they have no chance of surviving. What he told me at the time, he says it's probably every 2 years. So it could be, we don't have to inject, because we did inject them last summer. We may not need to inject them again this year. We're gonna go based on his advice. But I'd rather have the money there so we can inject them if we need. Then we don't need to inject until summer in May of 27. Actually, which will still be this budget. So it may be money we don't spend this summer. It may be money we spend next May.
which is fine, and I think just that $6,200 increase in that line. Just for planning purposes moving forward, it just might also justify if we're not spending in other lines. Just eliminating those lines or reducing them or having a contingency.
So you're combining it all.
Until they
So
can-
you make it a little less.
Yeah,
Is any of that possible to do in-house? I know a lot of communities have.
You have to
city
be
arborists.
licensed, you have to have an arborist that's
Absolutely.
licensed.
But if we're spraying for dandelions on the front, somebody's gotta have a permit.
We pay for, yeah,
Right, so.
Dennis has a contract for people to do
So
all
it's
of the
outside
spraying,
vendors,
yeah.
maybe.
You have to have a state license, then it can, so.
Right, but would it benefit us to
pesticide.
have somebody set internally, and that's probably for future.
My guess is
Yeah.
probably our insurance company would be thrilled with that, just because we're not gonna have the same level of expertise to getting the mixes right. No.
Yeah, you want something that's it. For sure. Thank you, I didn't mean to.
Sure, no, that's okay.
So the library is page 30. One change to this one is we had a hiccup in an email. So on the electricity line, you have which is almost at the bottom, I think fourth line up from the bottom. You have 12,500, it should say 12,750 on that one. As the proposed budget. And with that, do it.
Thank you. Okay, hello everyone. I know most of you, but for those who do not, I'm Catherine Weber. I'm the library director here in Topsham. So just a few notes about our organization before we get into the budget. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are run by a board of trustees and a director, which is me. The board of trustees is listed on the screen in front of you. It includes 4 officers, 7 members at large, a trustee emeritus, and a student board member, for a total of 13 board members, 13 trustees. In total in the building, we have 10.4 full-time equivalent employees. We do have 1 current vacancy that is soon to be filled, which is our circulation supervisor. And all the staff work together to run our 13,000 square foot building, which is open for 56 hours per week, Monday through Saturday. And we receive about 85% of our funding through the town, with the remaining percentage coming from donations and our Friends of the Library organization. Okay, so the new total that you should have now that we've made the adjustment to the electricity is $969,486. So just a slight increase from what was currently on the original. And that is a total increase of $64,786, or about a 7% increase from last year. The increase in cost is mainly due to staffing and benefit increases and changes, plus projected increases in our utilities. The 2 biggest increases that you're seeing are our health insurance and the sewer per percentage wise. And that's mainly because they were actually going to come in probably over budget for the current budget year. So we're upping the budget for next year to make sure that we're better in line with our spending. And in order to offset some of this, I reduced or kept flat every other category in our budget outside of payroll, benefits, and utilities. So all of our fixed costs, basically. Our priorities for next year's budget include maintaining our staffing level so that we can best offer the best possible service. We can stay in line with our projected spending. We're also going to be reviewing our collection balance between the physical and digital collections, how they're being used, deciding if we should be shifting any money from one category to another based on usage, or if there's better sources that we can find with cheaper cost of materials or better resources on offer. If there's a different online resource we can use, something of that nature. And related to this, we're also going to be exploring new resources for community engagement. This could be things like a learning language module, which is becoming more and more popular. Think of things like Mango, Duolingo, things you've probably seen advertisements for, or at other libraries. Could be a video streaming service. Could also be increasing how we meet people where they're at in the community, whether it's increasing our home delivery, connecting with schools, those sorts of things. So making sure that we're exploring all possibilities for how to engage the community and keep them active. How do we access what they need and help them to be supported both through educational and recreational opportunities? And finally, we're going to take a look at our building and keep planning for the future. Are there any areas that will need repairs or updates in the coming years? And how can we best work with the town to accomplish those changes? So just a few highlights so far this year that will also be continuing during the next budget cycle. So as I always like to say, we have a lot more on offer than just our books. Books are a huge part of it, but we have more than just that. One of the biggest things that we started this year were new art clubs for kids under the age of 5, which just started in September, and they average over 20 people per program with over 450 participants in total so far this year, which is amazing. We've also seen an increase in our teen room activity. We had some lovely people in our community donate 5 Nintendo Switches and assorted snacks, both of which the teens love. They keep them happy, occupied, gives them things to do, a place to connect, which has been really great. And our teen librarian is amazing at putting out various projects for them to complete. They're always super into those. We're also working on increasing our programming outside of work hours. This was something that came out of our long range planning through our community survey. So far this year, we've had our first ever puzzle race, which is where you compete in a team to complete a puzzle the fastest, which is as nerdy as it sounds. We had 21 people show up for that and absolutely loved it. And then this coming Friday, we actually have our bling date with a book, which has 30 people registered, and they're going to bedazzle books while they watch a romance movie. And that's sort of like their Galentine's night, which will be really fun. And again, it's sort of outside work hours, so trying to capture people who maybe can't use the library during the week. And we're looking at expanding the use of our garden and outdoor space. Just this fall, we received a donation of a large-scale Connect 4 game that lives out on our patio so that people have like something to actually do instead of just running around the gardens, which is also delightful. And the children pictured here were doing just that, in fact, when I captured this photo. And that's also great. But we like people to actually know what's in the garden. So one of the other things we did was we featured different plants that are in it in our weekly newsletter, which was really popular. So we saw increased foot traffic in the garden. And so we're just hoping to continue that trend of like telling people about what we have to offer and helping them to come discover it, including a discovery that we made, which is a gargoyle named Bernardo, who likes to play hide and seek with the kids. He hides throughout the garden. Every single week, the kids get to come and find him. It's a fun adventure for them. And then finally, our art gallery, which is consistently full of beautiful local art. It's currently got a display from the Portland Camera Club. So beautiful photographs. If you get the chance, please come and take a look. That gallery is booked for the entirety of the 2026 calendar year. So we're very excited about that. Our gallery coordinator has been working really hard to accomplish that. And this just some quick fun statistics for you all, a snapshot for further reference. So you can see that most of our numbers are up comparable to the same time last year. We are seeing a downturn in our use of Wi-Fi and public computers that we're trying to get to the bottom of. But we're still having significant traffic with people printing directly from their own devices. So that could be part of it, is just smartphones and things like that make it easier, more accessible for people to just come and use those types of services instead of having to log on to the public computers and things like that. Circulation is up over 15% as of December year to date in the same time period, and up over 13% as of the end of last month. Our number of visits continue to increase slow and steady. The total number of patrons only had a slight decline in the same period last year because we were deleting old records that we no longer needed. So it's not a true decline. It's more just making sure that our record keeping is tidy and that it is accurate. So there's a lot happening, and we're really hoping that next year's budget will allow us to continue our momentum and build towards new projects.
Next question on it.
Yeah.
When you looking at the top and I see December fiscal year 26.
Yes.
And year to date
Yes.
fiscal year 26, are those the same things or different things?
No, so it's December to December, so 1 month to 1 month versus December YTD, which would be July to December, July to December.
Under active patrons,
Yep.
the number is the same for December FY26 and year to date.
Yes.
So there was nobody in between. Is that how I should read that?
No, so active patrons is just the total number of patrons that have an active card during that time period, and it would be the same for the month of December versus the year to date because that number doesn't change.
Got it. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions? Happy to take them.
So payroll's going up 3%.
Mhm.
But I see the payroll taxes are going down. How does that happen? From the cap.
Cause I tried to anticipate, I try to estimate what the actual taxables are as opposed to, because when you have health insurance, your contribution is taxable by Social Security. And when you have 457s, you actually have a component that you add into FICA. And then there is a component, when you have your other stuff. I always try to fine tune FICA because it's something that if I took all the FICAs throughout this budget every single year, they would be underspent. So I'm constantly trying to tweak that, what we actually end up paying per year. So if you had, when you have a 1-person department, it's that's probably gonna be okay, but when you have a 20 department, like the police department of similar size, it can be a significant amount of money.
Is there usage of the retirement benefit or the tax advantage benefit, but very, right?
Yes.
I have a question on electronic materials.
Mhm.
Are these mostly licenses or are they mostly actual equipment?
So electronic materials is mostly ebooks and audiobooks that we're paying to purchase, and usually it is a limited license. Unfortunately, the model that they have is usually like a 2-year. Sometimes it's perpetual use. Included in here is also things like our online author talks that we have, our book flicks, which is like online picture books that you can scroll through. So there are some subscriptions, but mostly it's the digital materials.
Also, excuse me, on the insurance line item. I'm looking at, the budgeted this year for 141,700 versus last year 85,820.
Yep.
That looks like a difference of 55,000, which seems to be the most significant increase that you guys have.
Tell you where that is too.
Yep.
I'm just curious how we came with 65%, because when I look through all of the other departments and their insurance changes, it's single digits to like 11 or 12%, and here we see a 65% increase.
Yeah, so as I briefly mentioned, so the health insurance line is actually gonna be over budget for this year because we had one family plan budgeted for the current fiscal year, and we actually have 3 people that are utilizing the family plan tier. So I'm gonna offset that this year, and then next year I increase that budget, so it looks like a large increase, but if you look at like the fiscal year 2025 actual, it was 105, which means you can already tell if we have the same staffing level, it's gonna be over for this year. And so I think we're looking at, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I do know that it's gonna be over 85,000 for this current year. We've currently spent 51,000 as of year end, and I think it's 65,000 as of the end of January. So we're on track to go above the 85 for this year, so I'm budgeting more for next year to be more accurate for what we're actually seeing.
So what do you think you're actually going to spend this year?
I don't know for sure what that number is. I
Yeah,
can
that's
attempt to
position.
estimate it for you, but because we've had staffing changes, it's fluctuating currently, and it probably won't be an accurate one until we're fully back up to staff, and I know what that new staff member has for their tier.
And so you're only down 1 staff member
Correct.
currently. So you should, by the end of this year, have unless people within the current plan start changing to family plans.
Correct,
And
yeah.
do you anticipate people are changing to family plans?
I don't anticipate that, but I'm not sure if the new employee will need one or not. That'll be
Yeah, you
decided
can't
whenever
tell.
we select someone.
You can't really know, it just changes.
Right, so it's, yeah, so it's budgeted at the higher.
And it's always in the middle, so you
Yeah.
never know. We had in the fire, police department, we had, 3 people came off of the cheapest plan we had and went on the more expensive one. So but that change doesn't, you don't know that for June, you only know that as of December. So every time we have a vacant position or
For it to be the max.
it depends on the number. If there's more than one, if there's one, I'm gonna put married. And if there's, like say there's 3 or 4, I'm gonna put at least one as a single.
I got you. That makes sense.
For a while, we got lucky with some of the police officers and they were young enough, they're still in their parents' insurance.
Right.
They were taking the buyout. So they were getting the buyout, which is less than even the single plan, so that helps the budget.
That makes sense. I mean, if that's the largest increase, then that's the reason for it.
Yeah, and I understand it's a bit of sticker shock when you're seeing that percentage and the dollar amount, but there is a solid reasoning behind it.
That's all.
This isn't a budget question.
If it's about renewing, I can't do that right now, sorry.
No, how old does the student have to be to serve on the board?
We typically have a rising junior, so they can serve a 2-year term.
When?
Don't blame you, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because they get to see the inner workings of like committees and boards, which unless you're part of student government, you probably wouldn't otherwise.
On my calendar.
Yes.
Have you, you must charge for some things, or some revenue. Have those increases increased commensurate with the additional expense increase?
So mostly the only things that we're charging for are things like our copying and our non-resident fees. And I don't have those numbers in front of me, so I can't say for sure. That's part of the library's portion of the budget where the revenue comes in. But we are, like, if there's increase in paper costs and things like that, we're trying to offset or at least make sure we're running equal where we need to be. Going once, going twice. Thank you all.
One way you can.
Okay, next our capital programs, which are on page 32. Some of these you heard the departments talk about last night. You heard Pam talk tonight about hers, but we just top to bottom. So the first one is the 30,000 we use to replace computers, basically. So it could go for servers, could go for desktops, laptops, whatever's needed. We do everything we can to stretch it. I think we can make 30,000 work again for next year. You may say, well, or Bill may say, it's only 67, 62. What's going on? Why did you ask for 30? Police chief came to us and said that all the computers in the cruisers needed to be replaced. And they're the ones that in the car, they can run license plates, issue tickets, whatever else may be. They are unfortunately very expensive computers because they have to be special rugged ones. And then unfortunately, because our current ones were old enough, the pieces, the stands that go on the cruisers had to be replaced too. So it's been a big project, and then our computer company has to do some special programming because all the firewalls and the things that the law enforcement data is protected by. So we will easily hit the 30 this year. It's just we haven't paid that bill yet because the project's not finished. But I guarantee you're going to see the money expended.
Do the cruisers have Wi-Fi in them?
They have like air cards. I don't know if they use Verizon or AT&T, but
Verizon.
Verizon.
So that money will definitely get expended. For paving, Dennis initially came to me asking for $775 or $750. He had Village Drive added on here as well. That goes up into the Highlands. Unfortunately, the way things worked out this year, all the streets on his list, or almost all of them, needed milling. So the ones that are in Topsham Crossing or the ones that are over on Patricia, if we just went in and paved over, would end up at the bottom of everyone's driveway, causing places for water to collect and ice and issues and things. So in addition to doing the paving, the roads we do this year, most of them are going to have to be ground down first, essentially. I had him take Village Drive out just because, bearing in mind, trying to keep things at a tax increase that was less. That was the one that I cut. If you drive on it, it's pretty good shape right now. So I will make sure though that we do Village Drive next year because our tip is almost done. It's hot for Highland Green, and that's a legitimate expense on that tip is Village Drive. So as we look through things that we pay for, to the extent I can, I try to allocate them towards the tips because that's how we get maximum benefit. Is if it's an expense we would have paid anyway, and we can use tip dollars. In effect, it costs us about 60% of what it would by the time it works out. So Village Drive would be next year, but unless we find some money from heaven, I don't think it's probably going to be an ad for this year. The 400,000. If you remember last year with the 800,000, we had a list of about 10 different things that the money could be used for, knowing that the money would come anywhere near paying for all 10, but to give the select board the ability to adjust if need be, which direction it went. I'm proposing we do a similar thing with this 400,000, and the three things I'd like to be able to have the money go towards would be either Tedford Road improvements. It won't need to be designed because design's being paid for in this year's budget. Pleasant Point Road improvements or design. I don't expect anything major for Pleasant Point Road, but tonight we added something to the select board's agenda for this coming next meeting. because the state's having a grant opportunity come out at the end of March for hazard mitigation improvements. And there's an emphasis on nature-based solutions, so basically planting things to protect the shoreline as opposed to putting a bunch of rock down. When we had Sebago Technics do their preliminary design a couple years ago for the different areas of Pleasant Point Road, there were 3 areas that they thought nature-based solutions would work best. So what I'm gonna have on the select board agenda for the 19th is I've got a quote from Sebago Technics to do the final design for the 3 areas that nature-based solutions are all they're looking for. And then I'm hoping that info will help us get a grant. So if need be, if we needed some matching money towards that, that would theoretically come out of this 400,000. The other thing that may come out of this 400,000 is if we end up getting another RFP we're working on soon to hope put out is going to be for some of the transfer station stuff we talked about the first night. So if a piece of that maybe comes through that we want to get that done, that would theoretically could come out of this. And then other than that, we'll basically just set the money aside for Tedford Road, hoping to do the work in summer of 27. Another reason to do that work in summer of 27 is that too could be funded by the Highland Green TIF that's going to expire. So we don't want to let that expire without doing this road project because we get more for our money if we use TIF money to pay for it. We have the select board set aside $300,000 of surplus 2 years ago in reserve for Tedford Road, so that's sitting there. We have 114,000 sitting in the Highland Green TIF that could be spent on Tedford Road. So we've got about $500,000, and of the money we set aside this year for various capital projects, we still have a good chunk of that left. So the thought is that too would get rolled over. So if we got a phenomenal quote and we could get the job done for $1 million, we've got enough money between all our sources, we could do the road in the near future. I'm kind of encouraged because the engineering firm that's now doing design, we met with them a couple days ago, and they're talking more in the $2 million range rather than the 3. So I thought that was good. Hopefully their final design will reflect that. And I was talking to Jim Howard about a week ago and he said contractors are starting to get hungry. He's actually got people soliciting him for work. Whereas for a while, he was having to line up things long in advance. So long story short, most of this 400,000 is probably just going to get saved for Tedford Road to add to our other money and then added to next year's capital so that we can actually get the project done in fiscal year 27. Again, if more money came down from heaven, I would add more to this pot so we've got more sitting there for Tedford Road. Next line down is you heard Dennis talk about last night his public works needs. They total 386,000. And as Kathy and I were looking at ways to try to again keep the tax increase down, we noticed that we had kind of built up reserves for public works of 205,000. So we still want to do the work or buy the 386,000 that Dennis talked about last night, but the way we pay for it is only 186 would be new taxation. 200,000 would be from using that built up reserve. 178,000 is the fire department things that the deputy chief outlined. The 175 is the police with the 2 cruisers, as the chief outlined. Does not include anything extra for the take home proposal. That's something that will depend on what you guys think of that later. Also does not include the police dog for the same thing.
So, the 175, the police cruisers were 65,000 each?
Yep.
So that 2 of them.
What was the other item, Kathy?
Was the 65 fully equipped or was that's equipped? It's 50,000 for the vehicle and 15,000 to equip it.
You're looking for what the $45,000 difference
The
is?
difference, yeah, well, I mean, it might be important, I just was curious what it was.
Yeah. No. Kathy will check the list.
For the racing wheels.
Spoiler, man,
Yeah. Gonna deck out the car.
wasn't that long ago, didn't
Wait a minute. I'm trying to, no, I think those were for the license. I was wondering if it was the body cameras he's replacing, but I think those are out of
Oh,
the.
yeah,
These
but it's
are
real cameras,
these are
isn't
the
it?
licenses.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is slow going.
Take your time.
But that price doesn't reflect the computers, because that's part of.
Right.
Market's fault.
And those would be paid for this year.
When when Chief spoke last night, the 15,000 was part of taking the old computers and putting them in the new car. That is like new computers being installed, I feel like. Because some of the old ones don't fit into the new models because they change. Vaguely remember talking.
Yeah, we don't buy new cruisers, sorry, we don't buy new computers every time we buy a new car. The computer comes out of that first 30,000. What he has had to do is he had a little bit of built up leftover. I think his was maybe like 25,000 or something.
So,
That his built up leftover is also going to this computer project, like the stands for the computers.
It does say that the take-home police cruiser amount was 30,000 and the replacement for the police patrol dog was 15, which equals 45,000. Is that included in this number?
No, no, you.
That could be.
Now you get Kathy to think.
So it's actually maybe included.
So in which case, if you don't go with, if you decided not to replace the patrol dog, you'd have savings of about $55,000 total.
Right.
Because not only would you not be paying, which now looks like it may be included, we'll clarify that and get back to you. Not only would you be paying the 10 for that, you're not paying all the money associated with the training, you're not paying the overtime that's ongoing every year. So you could almost fund take-home cruisers by not replacing the patrol dog, because you'd have enough savings.
I like the way he budgeted, I'd rather have it in there.
Yeah.
As opposed to having to add it, after with all this stuff.
Yeah,
You know, it is 65, it's 15 for the dog is in there. And 65 for 65 each for 2 cruisers. And it does say 30,000 for cruiser take home.
Yeah, so they're included in the.
So they're in that.
so this line, if you don't want them. If you don't want the cruiser take home, then it'd take 30,000 out of this.
Yeah.
And then if you don't want the patrol dog, it'll take 15,000 out of this. Plus, I'd say you could safely take about 40,000 out of overtime.
So this budget was, those à la carte items that we were talking about are all only in the budget?
No, this was an error that this was in here. My intent was not to have them in. I was sitting down trying to figure out ways to make things work number wise. So my thought was, I was trying to prioritize myself. The things that the a la cartes in my mind didn't raise to the importance of the things that were the.
But this is worst case scenario, it's.
For the police department, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
if we took them out of here, we might put them back in paving that we cut. I mean, theoretically.
Right, yeah, if we. When Kathy and I were trying to make this work, if I had realized that those were in here, I would have either put 440,000 in the capital project fund, so there's more money for Tedford Road. That's probably where I would have put, or potentially added into the paving, but one of the other two. The two I cut significantly, and I wish I didn't have to, but there's no choice, was the paving and the capital projects line.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. Takes me a while to figure out where I put something. Did I just put it in here or did I put it in here something, which?
But I know for sure the TDI a la carte item is not in the budget at all.
That is not.
The 20,000 for Mid-Coast Council of Governments work. And I know for sure that the conservation consultant is not in the budget at all. Although that one has a pretty good workaround if you decide you want to propose it come from the open space fund.
I was just wondering, this may not be relevant, now that we have the new bridge open, don't you have to have a budget in there for maintaining the Topsham part of the bridge? And I'd also like to know what's gonna be done, if there's any budgeting and what it is, plan for the park, or whatever you call it, that's right next to the water on the Topsham side, on both sides, on the Sea Oak side and on the other side. Who pays for that?
So the good news is, this is one area I'll thank the state. Because the state came to Topsham years ago when there was a committee, actually the former Commissioner of Transportation was on the committee for Topsham at the time. And they came up with their design and Topsham was given a price for the improvements, and the Topsham's gonna have a little pocket park, kind of where the bridge, the former bridge ends. So right now there's girders and stuff sitting there,
Okay.
but we're gonna have a park there.
Which side? Is that on the left?
It's gonna be the left side of the new bridge.
The
If you're
left?
coming from Topsham to go to Brunswick,
Right,
it'll be
okay.
left hand
And
side.
what about the right side?
So in there's gonna be a pocket park, it's gonna have like a hardscaped area that's gonna have power, so you could put a food truck in there if you wanted to do, a little event or something. The Brunswick side's actually gonna have a little amphitheater, so they could do like with terrace seating with grass and rock, I mean, not actual chairs, but. So they could do you could do a little concert there or something. The way back, the state priced this out back in 2016, whatever it was, and they came up with a price of, I think it was 330,000. I could be a little wrong, but it's roughly that. And the state said at the time, the Topsham would have to pay that. So Topsham set aside the money years ago to pay for that. We've been getting interest on it ever since. And then, of course, the litigation happened and the state was getting sued, trying to block the bridge construction. And construction costs skyrocketed during that 5 years the litigation was going on. The state told us 3 years ago that they were gonna hold to the price they gave us in 2016. They finally asked for the first payment last spring and Kathy paid it. And we have the last payment sitting in reserves, ready to make as soon as they ask for it. But the state's absorbing all the extra costs of creating this. As far as maintenance costs, I mean, we already plowed down to the bridge and I can't remember the agreement. I think it's Brunswick would plow one way and would do the sidewalk or vice versa. But it's just, whether it's this plow or the sidewalk, it's just extending our route a little bit. So it really doesn't add anything to the cost. And then as for the park, there may be a little pulling weeds or, mowing or something, but we'll do that with public
What about
works.
on the right side as you go into Brunswick, this where all this construction material is just at the beginning of the bridge on the right, is that gonna be a part?
That's owned by Jim Howard.
That's not part?
That's not town, no. So that's owned by Jim Howard and they rent that space from him. So then, once they're gone, he's gonna reclaim his parking lot and fix it up.
Parking lot's gonna be.
Not for us, I mean, that's his private.
Priority group.
Yeah. It's part of his building that's at the
It
corner.
was a parking lot before, it'll go back to being a park.
Yeah, I think
And
you
does the
lost
bridge, we
five.
have to budget like each year for the maintenance of the bridge, the new bridge?
The bridge itself is a state responsibility,
Oh.
which is nice.
That is-
Mark, if the dog, police dog isn't approved, what happens to the old police dog? That dog will be, gonna be kicked out from the
It's
streets.
normally what happens,
Poor little dog.
normally what happens is the handler keeps the dog. So certainly if the handler wants the dog, it would. I don't know what would happen if he didn't want the dog, because unfortunately it could be a dangerous dog. So, but assuming that the handler wants the dog, the handler will keep, and that's usually what happens, if the handler keeps the dog because they bond and stuff.
If we don't approve that, then should we add like a little caveat of so much money budgeted to take care of the canine that we're getting rid of, if, anyway, I mean,
I mean, it's a pet at that point, so
okay.
I'd say
So
probably should head that
just to
direction.
clarify, where, the way I took it was that this would be to replace the dog, these figures that the police chief gave, be to replace, not get rid of the current one, once this one's phased out.
I think you'd like to,
Retirement.
you'd like to-
I don't see this dog getting fired, that's not. I don't think-
he'd like to phase the dog out, I think now, because it's about the end of its useful life.
Okay.
If he was told he wasn't in Howard, so I guess another thing to think.
People apart.
Another thing to think about for this group is to get all the cost savings I talked about, would have to fire the dog,
Right.
because if we keep the current one, maybe the dog can last another year, then we're still paying the 40,000 in overtime for all the various trainings and stuff. So if we just don't buy the new one, then there really won't be, other than what you've noticed, that you by accident included the 15,000, all you save is 15,000 if we don't buy a new one. If you say, we're not gonna get the new one and let's end the program July 1st, then you end up getting the overtime savings as well.
Too bad he couldn't become a pet a little faster. That's 40,000 a year.
Yeah, but the presentation last night, was very good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we did the 15,000 for the dog and put the 30,000 from the cruisers to the dog, we'd be short, what, 15,000 in training costs?
I think he thinks he can absorb, that's basically built in his current budget, because,
Where the training is?
yeah. Cause this officer is, to some extent, he goes to the overtime to teach, or sorry, to learn, to get certified. He also is teaching some of it. So some of that overtime, he's gonna be there with that dog anyway. So I know Chief Hagan paid a lot of attention to his budget. So I think if the chief thought he needed additional stuff beyond his current budget, he would have asked for more than the 50.
Yeah, I think we should leave that in there. We can't force a dog to work beyond its age life, you know?
Well, it may not be effective anyway, period.
What is that?
If the dog is 10 years old, I mean, they can be diminished in a lot of different skills, so it probably is in our best interest to have one that's sort of like.
Here's when I was trying to figure out what do I prioritize, you saw there were 46 calls for the dog. 11 of them were for public relations. Garver does the same thing. The dog at the fire does the same thing, probably better. You know, obviously this dog can do a demonstration at National Night Out, but you're not gonna use it for, go sit in the library with a bunch of kids.
It was one.
It did 22 sniffs, which means it walked around 22 cars. Just from my experience, there's a lot of cars that get walked around and they don't actually find anything. And the chief, I think, can get you the numbers. He mentioned he didn't know off the top of his head, but my guess, it's maybe 25% of that 22 actually find something. Probably the most useful thing it does is, I think he said there were 4 building searches. So if someone broke through the door here and you suspected there was someone in the building that you don't know, they could have a weapon, you don't know that either. You send the dog in, first you warn the dog's coming in, some people may just come out. If they don't come out, you send the dog in, and the dog may find someone with a gun that maybe would have shot the officer or something. So it could be very useful for building searches. But is it worth $60,000 a year? Because there are other options too. We can call and ask the state police if they'll come, or maybe they don't have anyone available. But it's, again, as I was trying to balance out money, I thought, well.
So if there are, say there are 50 calls in a year, at that 60,000, it's every call, so we're paying $1,200 for that dog to go out, and many of them are not even for our community. They're for surrounding communities, is that correct?
And out of those, and again, it was 46, and a quarter of those are just going out and meeting the public, which again, probably Garver does more effectively and stuff.
Unfortunately, in public safety, we can't plan. I mean, you could have that one call and that thing's paid for itself 3 times. I mean, you don't know. You could go 2 years and not need a particular piece of.
And ultimately, those are your calls.
We can't sit here and judge. You know, it's not like a plow truck that you know you're gonna use. It's an insurance policy and it's protection. You can't, it's so hard to quantify whether that's, you know.
If there's other communities that the dog is being used in, why don't you just charge them?
Kind of everyone shares.
Well, that's what I mean, is there some sharing of this cost?
Well, I don't mean sharing that way. I mean, let's say we needed, like Mount Everett would periodically get bomb threats. So we don't have a dog that does bomb detection. So we will, or the PD will call and they'll get maybe state police send down a bomb dog, or Cumberland County probably still does have a bomb dog. They'll send them in to search the school. They don't charge us for that. We don't charge by sending our dog out, but let's say we had an incident that needs a standoff and either the Brunswick Special Response Team comes over or the state police special response team comes down. They don't charge us for that. So kind of the tradition in law enforcement and I believe the fire service too. It's been you help each other out to the extent you can. So I don't think we want to get into trying to charge each other. No, good question.
I'm just curious, what the finance committee and the select board is thinking about this while we're here. Talking about budgets, do you think we should go forward with the dog? How many of you think you should go forward with the dog?
I gotta think about it more. I absolutely think, totally, completely in favor of that.
I don't think I think understanding on public safety is always, it's a slippery slope. Once you got something, it's time to get it back.
Well, it's just that we're not always together, so it was nice to have us both all at the table to just ask that question.
Well, yeah, too.
That's true. I know, but we hate to change the budget so much on the night we're voting, you know.
You know, public safety is 92% of the budget goes to paying benefits. You know, if we didn't have to, you know, if the union didn't have us over a barrel, we use your program, maybe we'd have more money to spend this time. You know,
Is it more, it seems to me like there's a little bit of a conundrum in the dog plus all the costs that go associated with it, which is about 60K a year-ish, give or take. And then we've had for a long time, we've had a problem with retention, the recruitment and retention of security forces. And that if they can take the vehicle home, it's a little bit of an incentive for retention. But we'd have to maybe buy another vehicle, which is about 60K to replace the vehicles that are off the road. And I mean, and you bring up a really good point. I mean, safety and security is paramount but at what level does a tiny community decide, retention and recruitment and retention and quality of life, dog sniffer or whatever you want to call that, or all of it, which leads to, it certainly doesn't decrease taxes. It's a pickle.
One thing, because I want to make sure I'm being fair to this whole thing, there is also a retention aspect to the dog in that sometimes people want to go to larger PDs because there's more opportunities to specialize. They have a dive team, so I want to go to this place. The dog is something that we can offer here that makes an officer maybe want to stay. Because it's like, oh, I've always wanted to be a canine handler. I've got this opportunity in Topsham. So if we take that away, that's one less opportunity for someone to specialize. So there is.
I have a problem with we're talking about drug awareness and all this stuff in the schools, trying to educate our youth and all of this stuff, and then turn around and take away a tool that is very effective in combating some of that.
But it sounded like it alerted, if we said 25% of what it was at 20 or 30 times.
That's last year, but if you could, next week they could seize it. I mean, it's so hard to.
Do we have a big drug problem here?
How many people that the police pull over and everything are not residents of this town? We're a population of 9,600, but this town's handling what, 30,000 a day?
It's just the location of the town.
People passing.
Yeah, and that's what our officers are dealing with, more than just the going making house calls. They're dealing with the people that are coming through dealing their drugs in Topsham, Fairmont.
The Home Depot guys that come in up the highway that go, they'll go into a Home Depot, rob everybody, like take everything blind, and they'll just walk out the door. And their employees are told they can't do anything about it. But once people leave, the cops are called, and now we're getting into some sort of chases where people are stealing lots of stuff. They're not Topsham residents, they're just people that are passing through the convenience of our town.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is because we were under the impression that these two items, this 45,000 was not in the budget, but now it is. So we have to make a decision. Do we leave it in the budget on one area or the other, or do we take it out? And put it into another area? I don't know.
You don't have to make it tonight, but.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. So, when you are, anyone, soliciting or, talking to town members, what would our townspeople say about this? What are we hearing from our community about?
They want cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want cuts.
And when you see an item like this, where this dog is used 45 times at a cost of 60,000 a year. I understand what you're talking about, the safety, but in terms of the cost benefit. That's a damn big ticket item. That,
I was trying to talk about $30,000 for the cruiser program. He needs to buy several cars. That's 30,000 over.
Yeah. Well, the one thing about the cruiser program is like pointing out, all his numbers are in $2026. 5 years from now, we're gonna be paying a lot more for cruisers, so. I would need to probably add an inflation factor to that. Because we're not gonna get two cruisers for $50,000 in 2031. Right, a piece, 50,000 a piece or whatever. Now, if we can get some more efficient cars and Ford can produce, or whoever's gonna produce more hybrids to get that saving in fuel costs and efficiency. Yeah, that will, what they're gonna cost more, so it's probably just all a wash thing.
Well, to throw another wrinkle into this, I mean, one of the things that when I first moved to Topsham and first got on this. The town road budget was a big ticket item And it was very easy to slash that down to practically nothing. And it's taken us a long time to get to a point where we're close to being where we should be in terms of a budget for the roads. And already you've taken what, 250,000 out of this? And from my standpoint, I would rather see the money put back into the roads.
But part of it's how much can they get done in a year? I mean, it's not buying raw materials, but if we can't put it on the road, it's not worth buying.
But if you don't have the funds there when a time comes and it's available, you're shit out of luck at that point too.
But
So-
they've improved that with Crooker now coming onto the roads, caught up now, so.
So I pulled up the data about the cruisers and he was saying that we needed 8 cars over 5 years would be 520,000, but you're saying the prices will be going up. Or 10,000, 10 cars over 5 years, which is $650,000. So those are those small amounts that we're looking at as well.
You know, if you average, just for the 2% from an average of 2% per year for inflation, what does that chunk it up to? I mean, that's probably unrealistically low, but it's gonna be a number. So, I mean, it's just something to consider.
But that's the same for anything we're talking about.
But of course.
Anything. It's-
But this is a big ticket budget, item spread over 10 to 15. You know, so they're gonna spend $1 million for a ladder truck, which is probably. So.
John, I have a
probably
question.
$2 million.
Yeah, if you're so worried about the costs, why don't you just buy used equipment from more sophisticated places? Like Portland or Boston or places where they have highly sophisticated equipment that that they get rid of more frequently, just buy it used. If you're so worried about the money for your security, safety, and the safety of your grandchildren and children, there's a way to save some money.
Yeah, I don't think you wanna use police cruisers.
I don't think so
It's
either.
pretty worn down.
But, there might be a way to do that. I'm just saying, if it's so important that you're not worried about the safety of your kids, your grandchildren, and yourselves, there's a way to save some money. So you get less sophisticated. I'm being facetious.
No, I
That's what you're talking about,
Sarcastic.
and it annoys me.
I'm betting that. They probably have this actuarial table in terms of like when certain types of events will happen for a certain population in town. Which would require like catastrophic police response or something along those lines. To say, do they have enough data on the K9 side to say this is what we see and this is what we project for you, given your population, just so that you want to see sort of a real life projection based on an expert opinion.
And if you'd like, I can task the chief of trying to get.
I'm just curious because Portland probably has these things going every single night.
Well, and we had Lewiston, I mean, remember that wasn't even that far, it wasn't even, what, it was under 20 miles away.
Gamble.
You're right.
A lot of stuff doesn't happen, but you better be damn ready for it when it does.
Yes, and what about I have to ask a question, this is just a question, but doesn't the population of people increase substantially during the summer and fall months? When you have overflow traffic for the colors and for the summer? That's where you're gonna get a lot of people coming in from out of state, and that's where the protection may be more important than.
Increases every afternoon,
Nobody wants to
2 and
know.
5.
Well, what we're talking about here, just to be
Well,
clear,
that's what I'm saying,
is that every police officer has a vehicle, that's the goal, but they're not working.
I'm talking about the dog.
Oh, well, you talked about cruises and safety experience.
Well-
I didn't understand what you said, Ann, what did you mean by that?
What I'm saying is the future plan would be to have a cruiser for every police officer. And so many of those police officers are not actually working, these vehicles are sitting at home. But overall, there'll be the same expense because it'll be the less use of each vehicle. So I get that in the long term, and this is something I actually wanna look at. But it wasn't supposed to be in the budget this year, and it is, and so do we keep that 30,000 set aside, and now we're saying the 15,000 for the dog is not gonna be enough, but then there might be money in the budget for the training, and then it's about $1,200 every time we do
I
the
think
dog.
if you want to do the dog, I think the 15,000 the chief's asked for enough, because like I said, he's very thorough in his numbers. And Lucas is at these trainings anyway, because he's helping teach them, so if he didn't specifically say, I need extra money for this, so I think you're good with the 15 that's in there, if you want the dog.
Because, and plus he said that they can't implement the dog for at least a year,
Right,
unless there's one sitting there.
yeah, and that may be the answer to the question, actually, the answer may be, he didn't build in the money for the dog training schools, because some of that fee, I think, now that I think about it, you said was for the dog itself as opposed to
For the
the
first
officer.
year, right?
So since there's a waiting list and you have to buy the dog and then wait a year, you probably just included the 15 for this year. But what I told him is I'd like the select board and the finance committee to have the true cost of the dog, not just the cost of buying the puppy, but to know how much it's costing the town to maintain this program so that they can make an informed decision. And ultimately, if you want to have it, you know, that's fine. Same thing for the cruisers. It's I would just want to make sure you guys have full advantage and make up your mind.
Well, that 30,000 is just a deposit for a future program. Because they're not gonna buy a car with 30,000.
Oh, exactly. And you know, as the chief said, he would phase this in over time. And we were already gonna buy 2 cars this year anyway, but next year we'd buy, so next year the program would be more than 30 because we'd have 2 cruises in a year. We would have done 1 for next year.
Maybe buy it halfway through the year, so we also. I inquired with him with a 30,000 before, I don't remember what it was for cruisers. You can't buy a car with 30,000, something there, that 30,000 probably.
I don't
It
think
was
it was-
over time, he was gonna build up, if you put that much aside this year and that much aside next year, then in the 5-year plan, he would have enough for
Well, you'd
everyone.
have to,
Ask him.
you'd have
I
to
can
have
ask
the
him.
money for the
That's no
extra
time.
cruiser for next year, and then you could
put.
put back for it, having an extra cruiser, if you're only buying 1, 2, 1, 2. And this is a 2-year, so next year you wanna be able to buy 2, you're gonna finance it this year and this year, maybe.
That's good. Find out for sure for mass, to find out.
One of the things in listening to the conversation that I was thinking about is the idea that part of what we have to do here is long-term planning. I mean, we're thinking about budgeting for years out. We do have a growing town. We do have a population that will be growing. We do have a fire department that if we get any bigger as a town, it's not like we hire 1 or 2 fire departments. We gotta hire a whole new team, a whole new squad, which would include 6 or 7, correct me if I'm wrong, but around that many firemen. Or however, and that also includes new equipment for that team. Police officers would also be, we have 17 on staff. That might have to also increase, but these are things long-term that we're thinking about. And the 2 things that we're thinking about this year for the police department is whether or not we're gonna provide take-home cruisers to our police department and keep the program with our dog that does, I'll call it the bite dog, just because it's one of those dogs. So those are the 2 things, and the decision that we make this year regarding that will have an impact on the long-term planning that we make because of the growth that we have. There will be the cost that we discussed today, and there will be the actual cost that we see 5 years from now. We can anticipate a lot, but we're rarely gonna be accurate in that regard. I think there's gonna be some things that are just out of our control. The bigger question is, do we think it's important to fund? And if we think it's important to fund, we should find ways to do that, knowing that we also have a growth that's coming up over the next 5 years in our town. And we should justify it as public safety is important to this town. And that's part of why we wanna spend that. We are trying to be conservative in our viewpoints for the town's finances. Meanwhile, we have a county budget that might be increased by 13% and a school budget that might be increased by 9%. That account for more than 70% of our overall taxes in this town. To a degree, we've been very good, but I also think this town does deserve more. You know, we deserve to be safe, we deserve to have the things that a town requires. And realistically, we're talking about a $15 million budget to run a town of 9,500 people that's growing. And this is the determination, is it important enough to keep? And for us to justify that increase or that stable fact of this is what we're gonna spend and we're gonna accept it. On the other side, we also have to play more specific role in schools and in the county budgets to make sure that they're on the same page that we are. Because we can't keep cutting our budgets while everybody else is increasing them drastically just to keep the taxpayer happy. The town also has to operate, the town has to be safe, the town has to do all the things that it needs to do. And we should take that priority here. I know that taxpayers want cuts, I want cuts, the people that I listen to want cuts. But we don't have to do all of the cutting. That falls on the responsibility of everybody that's involved in our municipality as budgets, but as far as this is concerned, public safety is important. And I do buy into that.
To elaborate on something you just said, the discussions that Jeff and I had with all three of the Chiefs finalists, talking about the fire department. What do you think Topsham Fire Department's future is? All of them think we're probably gonna need to grow it. We have a scanner on in our office when we work each day. It's not uncommon to have all of our guys, both ambulances out at the same time, everyone out. Discussions we had with the candidates were, I think there's a lot of merit, as do they, to having what we call a combination department of some per diems and some full times. Because a lot of the people that want to come here full time are ones that started as per diems, and they're like, oh, this is a pretty good place to work. And so I think it's going to be a combination, and it probably maybe as soon as next year. You're going to start to ask for more people, and as Jeff alluded to, it's probably going to be chunks of 4. And we might be proposal of we take a per diem thing and change it to a full-time one, because it's more likely to be able to get the person there. Or it could be that we add a per diem, thinking that now if we've got supposed to have 5 people each day, even if someone gets yanked by their other department, we still got 4. And hopefully a lot of us would have 5. But I think over time, we're probably within the next 5 to 6 years, we're probably gonna look to add 1 full-time position to each shift and 1 per diem, so that we have a shift of a crew of 6. So I think you're right. If I see an area in the future, we're gonna be looking for more people, it's gonna be the fire department.
I just know that this town is a very special town in the state. Special to the people that grew up here, but special because of the geographical location. We are a pass-through community. A lot of traffic comes through here. We're a safe community, but because we take pride in that safety, and we have the reinforcements to keep that safety. If we skimp on it, the things that are out of our control may become more widely out of control. And that's something that we have to oversee and make tough decisions on, whether we're gonna increase or decrease budgets, knowing that we want to cut budgets, but sometimes the right decision is the safety. Sometimes it's not, but I'm not giving my opinion for or against. I just want to give that context of the decision that we make will have an impact for the future. And it may have a significant impact over the course of the future, but that's something that we all have to.
Well, you made a really good point about the school budget development and Blount County, but I don't see anybody go to those meetings, it's crazy. When they have the meeting prior to the public vote and they have that meeting line, the teachers show up and that's it. No one goes to talk about it. Right. And last year I pushed them on this, they hired this dean of students or dean of something. It was just an admin job, and I'm just like, do you need an admin person? Do you need to keep, a German teacher or whatever? Those are the kind of things that have to be discussed. Where they prioritize where money goes.
If you'd like, I'll finish these, and then I actually had a couple slides where we talk about process going forward.
Good.
So.
9 o'clock yet.
I was hoping to get you out early one night. So thank you for the catch there. We've figured out that we budgeted some things into the police department we didn't think we did. The next line is the $22,000 for that Pam asked for the backstop. There is potentially another place we could take this money if you decided. There's a fund called the Whittier Fund. I think I referenced this in the first night. That's for capital improvements for the rec facilities and things. So if you said we want this, but don't necessarily want to pay it out of taxes, we could take it out of that fund. So that's that item. 25,000 is, as Justin talked about the first night, we've been putting 25,000 a year aside for the assessing revaluation. The balance on that account is like 223 or something. So this would give us almost 250. So based on the quote Justin got the other day, this would get us just about the point. If we needed to do one in the next couple of years, we could actually do it. The last line is capital maintenance. That line, and to some extent, Jeff and I struggle to figure out what's capital maintenance versus what's a repair. But what this was used for last year was some work at the transfer station, also helped by the fireboat that got replaced and things. What you'll see, we haven't spent anything this year, but that's only because the work hasn't been done yet. But you heard Jeff talk about we want to replace, or actually your last select board meeting, you authorized it. $60,000 due to the floors of the fire department to replace the linoleum. So that would come out of that line. When we switched to Dead River for the transfer station, they told us that our forklift canisters that hold the propane were actually expired in 2011. So we had to buy replacement canisters. And to get aluminum ones, which are a little bit lighter, it was $2,000 to get the 4 aluminum or maybe it's more than 4. But we've had a couple of guys that have had shoulder injuries there, so we're buying the aluminum because they're lighter. That's coming out of this line. Then the last thing, Jeff always likes to spend all our money. Jeff, we have at the library, the dry sprinkler system that's up above. There's a leak, a slight leak, but enough that the compressor had. You probably hear a noise in this room occasionally from down below. That's the compressor that's pushing air into the fire sprinkler system to hold the water back, because above the ceiling it's below freezing. If water is sitting up there, get a pipes burst. So the library has a similar system. There's just over time, they've got to the point there's a small leak that has to be replaced. The quote to replace it is what? 13.6. So the 75 will all get spent this year. The 50 that we have in there for next year, if you're thinking we're gonna be the floors on the police department side of that building, they too, the vinyl tiles getting worn out. It's not as bad as the fire department though. So that's that line. So that's what we're asking for capital lines.
Is there a sheet somewhere that shows the total for the line at this time?
Yeah, right at the bottom of that page. So it's that
Oh.
1566.
The Whittier Fund,
Or what?
the Whittier Fund, how much is in that fund?
About 200,000.
About 200,000, and so pulling that out wouldn't decimate the entire thing.
No.
Thank you.
So the total of those, again, includes those items that you found out in the police one, but is 1.566 million.
Alright, what's the criteria for that? What do you fund them up?
It's pretty broad. It's been around for a long time. It basically just for capital things of the rec department.
So it's specific to recreation.
Yeah. But it's broad enough, so another possible use for that fund would be, say, the community center wants to hire a fundraising consultant to help raise the money to pay for it. I think that could come out of the same fund, So next is the insurance on page 23. And Kathy, before I go into the kind of a real quick thing line by line, Kathy handed out, I think, did you hand out Kathy an updated?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't get it.
Kathy's gonna explain then, not because I'm trying to make her explain it, just because she does it better than I would. You'll notice at the bottom of insurance, there's, for payroll adjustment, there's a negative 80,000. And there's 162% negative number there. And Ryan was diligently doing all his math, and he's like, I can't figure out how this works. And so Kathy's gonna explain it.
Okay, I'm trying to find, what page of book is it?
23.
23.
23.
And while Kathy looks for it, that line normally is what we do. You heard Catherine talk about all of a sudden maybe someone left the library that was taking the buyback or didn't need the insurance. Now they've got someone that needs a family plan. So all of a sudden it changes the price of things. Normally this line, we do about 50,000. It's in case that happens with a town employee. Someone leaves us mid-year and does a different insurance status that gives us some money to do it with. This is also the place that in the past or last year what we did, it's where we put the money that we'd have available for the union negotiations. Because if we just built in a raise into the actual payroll line, then either someone might A, know what we've got to bargain with, or B, might accuse us of bad faith negotiations because we've already said what your raise is gonna be. And so traditionally what we've done is put it in there. What Kathy did at the end of the year, once the negotiations were all set and we did all the payroll adjustments, she took it out of this and put it in the right accounts for whatever departments they were in.
Now you have to explain it, right? Yeah, basically that is exactly what, so you have, you have the, I don't know, my department, finance department, the total increases ended up being like $5,000, so you in the budget line, you take that appropriation and you put it up. So we appropriated last year 300,000. And plus we knew that there would be money in it to carry over. So that is 102,984. So that gave us, the total balance for the account was $402. $402,984.
Kathy, I bet we're on the line with insurance.
Oh, we're on the bottom of that.
This is payroll adjustment, just
Payroll
above
adjustment.
insurance.
Sorry. All the insurance, briefly, insurance went down
This-
because of the renegotiation or the fact that we went out and solicited bids. So that's why you're seeing all the negatives in the line for the regular insurances. But so I'm trying to explain the payroll adjustment. So we had a total of 402 to work with for this year. When I calculated after all the contracts were settled and the non-union percentage was determined, that costs 380. So right now there's 22,943 year to date left in that account. And the reason it's negative is because you don't reflect the carryover in a budget column, because you guys don't see it, but at the bottom of this, I make sure that it equals the budget for last year, and the way to do that, you can't put carryovers in it. Basically, and I did do a worksheet and I can send that out tomorrow. I figured out why it won't print. If anyone cares. But I made it, so I did this just so I could explain it. Cause I knew why I did it. And then you asked me the question, so I said, well, I'm gonna write it up, put it on a piece of paper and get it out. And then I emailed it to Mark and Jeff, who didn't look at their email. Because I figured he would print it and bring it down.
Such a troublemaker.
Such a troublemaker. So, and then I couldn't print it. And I brought it back in my office and I couldn't print it there, and I know why I did it, but. It doesn't matter, but I can send this out. I know, I'll send this out tomorrow, now that I figured out how to print it. The other thing that I sent out to them today is from page 6. It's, I saw this the very first night and I'm like, oh, why did that happen? If you look at the county line, you'll see 26 and 27 are exactly the same. Because I forgot to finish the calculation and put the 4% increase. So I changed it, so it's still 4% because 1% of 24,000 is a large number, so it was only like $100,000 in the county tax line. It still comes out to the 4% increase, and I can send out
What's
that.
the number?
Yeah, it's,
The number, the real number is. It should be 2627665. And that is truly
276.
665. And that is the real 4%.
And
And
the
it's,
school was also increased.
no, was there.
Oh,
That is 4%. I mean, if you look at the 26
oh, yeah.
column and the 27 column, you can see that the county tax was the same number, but the school number was different.
Okay.
So that would be the reason. And I redid this page and I can send that out tomorrow.
Thanks.
On the insurance, we have to make a certain commitment to them in terms of the year of the contract.
No,
So is it paid, does it make sense to just go off bid every year, cause they always jack it up and give it to them.
So shake them down every year.
Pretty much.
That's
It's like a car insurance, that's how.
I think I may have trouble getting people for the to go against Maine Municipal in the future, but I think it does periodically, but I'm not sure when it makes sense to do it every year.
Yeah, I don't know, just I know on the personal side, it's like, the year one is always the best deal, then you get. Basically, the money back with you too, so.
I think our better chance of saving money with Maine Municipal, I think after this, is just trying to do everything we can to improve safety ratings. You know, and cause they do have a number of programs where you can get better rates, the safer you can be and stuff.
Going around with it. For one thing,
No, it was Dodge, he was upset with that being.
Yeah, my pen just exploded.
That's what I was there.
you keep throwing things, our safety is gonna be.
So yeah, what you can do as far as being as safe as we can be, so all of these things come into play. As far as us being efficient, safe, educated,
Right.
certified, all these things all contribute to that.
We get a big discount on our law enforcement insurance, which is part of this, because of the fact that Mark or Chief Hagan has the police department accredited.
Right.
So that helps us.
Helping court too.
And Jeff's starting the process for the whole town for the shape certification that you saw the fire department got a year or so ago. So hopefully some of those, so I think I think our efforts are better spent on that than getting quotes every year. And
I was just kidding, but basically that's how they basically make money, because I saved so much of my insurance next year, ouch. What are you done for?
And we got, I think, an artificially low discount on our workers' comp this year, just because they felt bad that we were about to get taken advantage of by this other company. But our experience rating should be better next year, so they're thinking we'll probably be able to hold next year on that too. As long as we don't get.
That's alternatives, is
Excuse me?
that all,
Yeah, no, it's all Maine Municipal. So, which is Maine Municipal is nonprofit, so it's basically,
they subcontract out of America.
no, they do their own claims handling and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So my understanding, and Mike can probably address some of this, but back in the early nineties, municipalities got to the point they couldn't even get some of this coverage. So the towns got together through Maine Municipal Association, decided to form their own insurance companies. And they really do focus on the town. I mean, we do get absolutely excellent service from them, whether it be claims or, you know, they'll come in and say we want to do an audit of our workstations, they'll do that. There's all kinds of things they'll do to try to help us save money. The one insurance that I haven't shopped here, and I'll tell you why I don't really want to, and certainly if you tell me to do it, I will, but is our health insurance. And the reason why is that too is through Maine Municipal. We get excellent service. They subcontract with Anthem for the actual claims processing, but they have in-house people that we can talk to. So if someone has a problem, you don't have to get stuck at the Anthem 800 number, you can call them. I don't think we would get anywhere near the quality insurance with someone else. And my worry is that we lose, something that has employees happy. They feel like if they're ill, they know they've got decent insurance coverage. They know they're not gonna get fought over it. They're not getting surprise bills. I just can't see any company that we would get that level of service. So I maybe we could come up with a lower price, but I think in the end, it's not worth it for what it would do for morale and everything else. So I'm hoping maybe some of this pressure the federal government's doing to help with medication costs. That's the biggest driver Maine Municipal says in our premiums is a lot of these medications. So if they can get some those costs down, maybe they could have some relief on the premiums. So again, I haven't shopped that one, but if you tell me you want me to, I will. But
You wanna be in a big school boss.
yeah.
And it's a pretty big pool.
Yeah, exactly.
And the nice thing about Topsham, as opposed to when we came from Brunswick's specially rated. Because if you have over 50 employees on the plan, you get individual rated. We don't, so we're just part of the big group of Maine Municipal. And that's probably another good thing that we broke off the library under the library, for those of you that are on the finance committee. For whatever reason, for years, we were doing the library's payroll, but it was under the town's tax ID number. So as far as the IRS or everyone, it looked like we're one big thing, when really they're not town employees, they're library employees. So Kathy and I got it separated last year, so the libraries now, they have a separate payroll service, it's done under their tax ID number. And the town does stuff under ours, but it also means they've got 15 employees that, let's say they all took health insurance. That might be enough to push us over the 50-person threshold, but we don't have to worry about that because now they're under their tax ID number and so. So that's about all I have to say in insurance. The next three things are public utilities, which are on page 31. And if Dennis were here tonight,
He would say.
he would tell you that he would wish we hadn't switched the streetlights. He would wish we were still renting from CMP.
Really?
We saved a lot of money up front, but we're starting to have a fair amount of them fail and they're beyond the warranty. Now, if you look at this budget, you're gonna say, hey, wait a minute, you only spent $1,691 so far this year. The reason for that is because of parts availability. Right now, there's, I think, at least 10 that are out. And Dennis has been working hard and trying to get the parts from the company, and they've raised enough heck that I think he finally got a shipment like last week or something. But Enterprise Electric does our actual install, and they're very prompt. And so this bill is about to jump because the parts are now in, so they can do the lights. You may have noticed out at the Middlesex, the light for the Middlesex connector there, the blue light there. I asked Dennis if he was trying to attract all the bugs in town to that area. And Dennis said he wasn't. What he said is that's what they look like when they're getting ready to go. So that light's about to fail is why it's blue, not because we're trying to do bug
I feel like
lights.
that same light has been like a constant nuisance. They replace it and then it goes like that again.
So the number here, well, it's certainly well over the 1,600 we spent so far. Based on what Dennis is seeing, experience with those lights, he thinks we're gonna need the 30, and that's why he's got that line number. You know, we can certainly watch that over the next month, and once Enterprise Light gets us caught up, we can come back to it, you know, meeting next month if we think we can cut it down.
Is the issue with the parts that we're not a big enough customer?
I think it's a combination of, they have a factory in Dover where they assemble things, but they're still overseas parts. So they have to wait for shipments, and I think the tariffs and stuff have affected things, and so.
Just can't for.
Can't win.
No. So that's that line. Street signals, we pretty much consistently spend whatever we budget for that. So the state pays the money to install all these traffic lights is what that line is. But we have to maintain them after they're installed. We had a rash of, we've actually had a rodent rash that affects us a number of ways. There's been rodents that get into the traffic box, they chew the wiring, and then we have to pay for repairs. The state is currently hoping to finish soon a project where they're replacing all the, we call it coordination. So the lights on 196 from Topsham Fair Mall all the way out to the bypass and the Brunswick line are supposed to work together so that you ideally don't stop for more than a couple in the process, not get stopped at every light. They also adjust for traffic in times of day. So during BIW time, they might push more traffic on 196. Other times of day, less traffic, whatever. So they're smart systems, and they're supposed to, if they work well, they help move traffic better. But the state's been upgrading that whole system, and in the part of that, we were at a meeting about it, and Dennis said, as you're replacing these parts, what are you doing to harden these against animals? And they said, oh, you have a problem? And Dennis explained what our problems were. And they said, okay, we can add that to the project. So the state's doing some more animal protection. So hopefully that'll help us a little bit in that line. The other place we've had animals eating is in our 2 generators out here, and we're way over our generator this line because we've had a third wiring and parts up in. Dennis added some nice smelling things in there, so hoping that'll drive the mice away. So that's the streetlight line. Hydrants, we're at the mercy of the water district, whatever they tell us. They haven't been able to give us the number yet for this year, so Kathy put in 5% on that one. And that's the public utilities. Now for the good news, the debt service, that 122,000 that Kathy says we're gonna pay in November will make us, in Dave Ramsey's words, debt free. So we can do our debt free screen.
Great.
I think I would like to know for truth, how many towns in this state are debt free without bonds or without having debt
I think
service?
it's too many.
I know it's very.
I can tell you something, I'm a financial planner, and I know I manage some, will not tell you where or anything. But there are actually some municipalities that actually are highly solvent, that have millions of dollars. I'm wrong when I say municipality, I mean a district, sorry. And actually, I'll tell you, there's one. I don't know if there are any others, so I won't fabricate or hyperbole. But I know, I'm presuming because of correlation, but yep.
Sometimes you can get a bequest or something and someone.
No, I mean, I think it's been penny pinching since way back in the day, and I'm just astounded that, and then you invest their money and their money's making money, given the, municipal guidelines. But anyway, I think it's really fascinating. I think that's a very good question.
I think it's great that we have the services we have and are on good financial ones.
We have to borrow if we need.
Yeah, we should be so proud of that. I
It's a
mean, that's
testament to our man, really do.
Yeah,
Actually, what might be kind of fun is next November, you could do a mortgage burning or bond burning party or something. Put it on the web page.
Who's running for the election this year? Well, you get Jared.
So I've got two slides left. One's to talk about next steps on this budget, and then the other is to talk about whether you like this format for next year. So we've now given you our explanation of the book that you have in front of you, and now your work begins. We'd like to do anything we can to support you. So if you, the thought is that you probably will meet separately between now and March 10th. That's the date we're scheduled to come back here and get you guys to tell us if there's things you want changed and in what up, down, whatever, what direction, and try to get consensus on your two boards. If you have questions in the meantime, feel free to forward them to me and we'll get the answers from the department heads or ourselves, whoever it might be. If you're having a meeting and you want someone to come talk to your meeting, whether it be a department head, like for instance, maybe you want to do more talk about the cruiser thing, you want Chief Hagan to come, let us know and we'll ask him to come to your meeting. If you want Jeff or I to come to a meeting, we're happy to do so too. The only thing we ask is the rain date, snow date, whatever, for the 10th is the following Monday, the 15th, which is in the front of your budget book. I'd like to know that we can get things nailed down by then, because we have a lot of work to do at that point to get things ready for the first select board meeting in April, so they can order the public hearing on the budget at the second select board meeting in April. So if you think there's a lot of things you want to discuss, or you're going to a lot of questions, or maybe a lot of things to debate between your whole group, if you think you want an extra meeting, let us know, before then, say before the 16th, or maybe you just say, you know what, maybe we're going to plan to use the 10th and the 16th. So we've got those two dates to come together as a big group. If the select board wants to, I could add this as soon as to your agenda item for the 19th. If you want some time to discuss these things, if you want a separate night, just let me know what night you want. If you want it on your agenda for the March 5th, your first meeting in March, let me know if you can put it on there. The big thing to remember for both groups is if you have a quorum of your group that's going to discuss this, we need to do it as a publicly noticed meeting, just so that the public can participate if they choose. And I think that's it. So I think Gail's already been lining up dates for a finance committee thing with Rose, so I know they're working on a date. So again, just feel free to let me know if the select board wants to meet again to discuss or have it on agenda.
That's one of the little works. I would love to think to do that. It's like whatever, some type of a thing, whatever.
you're on the library board too.
You want on the 19th or on the 5th? Yeah, that's fine. It actually might be better on the 5th, because right now we've got an executive session about something else on that. So
I think so.
Yeah.
My first budget meeting was 1998. I'll tell you, it's, well, you saw what it was like that, but I mean, the process was, Michelle, to say the least, when I was 1986. The biggest benefit of all though is getting this document as opposed to legal three-ring blanket. You had to stop those things in and move them all around, and then having to return it at the end of the year.
So the school does it still, that doesn't work.
So the last question I have for the group is basically this format. Do you like doing it over 3 evenings? Would you rather have it earlier in the day? Would you rather have one dedicated day? If so, a Saturday or a weekday, or
You usually have Saturdays, that works pretty good.
I like that.
One day Saturday.
Yeah. Did everything.
You bought lunch, you nice.
We'll feed
A
you.
better lunch than we
Yeah,
had.
that's
Those marathon sessions, they suck the life out of you.
They do think about it, I do that. I just, we need to do one day. If you can do 1 week and get all these done, it's great just because you're all kind of focused.
Mhm.
And you start making comparisons and you just keep it top of mind as opposed to spreading out over 3 weeks or do that sort of.
Do you like the 3 nights in 1 week like we've been doing, or would you want?
I don't mind, but I don't know what everyone thinks.
I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
It's good to get it all. It's once a year.
I'm more partial to this format. I mean, I could do a Saturday, but if I had a choice, I'd prefer not to. So,
I just think, how many hours? For 3 nights, we've gone from 6 to about 8:30. 2.5 hours times 3, it's like an 8-hour day. Basically, that we would have to commit to on a weekend. I personally like the 3-day period because I like to ask a lot of questions and
No.
we get to that point at the end of an 8-hour day. And it becomes harder to scrutinize, I guess, or to look
Yeah.
things over and want to ask questions in depth. I ask them just because I feel like the public should know them if they're watching, like what Dave and I were talking about, but also, you know, I think the justifications are important and I don't wanna, they're long, but they're valuable and they're important. I think we get more out of it, like Bill was saying, if we spread it out over 3 days, just for 2.5 hours, we can grind.
You can digest a little bit.
And then,
I think last year we spent like close to 90 minutes on one item on one department. And that just, throws everything off.
The only thing is, from this point now that we have all the information, we're gonna go our separate ways. You guys are gonna discuss and see what you guys like and wanna take out or what you wanna add. We're gonna do the same. And then we're gonna get back together. We're gonna have a large meeting and say, do we vote yes on this, no on this, so on and so forth. I think we could get it done one sitting. Do you guys have a lot?
Reconciliation? Yeah, I mean, you get a pretty good sense as to what things are anyway, so. Between the 2 groups, so. You can tell.
I think there's just a few items like the park and rec little budget item piece to discuss, the police department to discuss. Other than that, I felt like everything was pretty.
So right now you've got the Tuesday, March 10th that's set for the whole group to come. And then it's the rain date of the following Monday, so you could just leave it Tuesday, the March 10th, and if something happens and you need the Monday, you could use it afterward. If you don't need it,
So would the finance committee be ready by March 10th to come together? You guys will have all your stuff situated.
Yeah, we've
taken care
got a meeting scheduled for the 26th, so we should.
of this month.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And if you needed more time, you guys could do that before. Okay, great.
One thing, get away from the scheduling, just for a suggestion for next year, I would like to personally, I would like to see more standardization in the slides. And I would also like to see anything that's a big, like anything that's that's jumped like over. And pick a number, say 25%, have them ready to discuss that.
Mhm.
Instead of us trying to pull it out and stuff like that, so I think just. If they hit it, if they're ready to hit it, talk about it, and they don't have to ask about it.
But you like talk 25% plus a certain dollar amount, not, 25%.
Yeah, there's something that's, they're like, we got big numbers here, 65, if they put it up, if you have it for, they already have it put it up on the slide, they acknowledge it, this is what I got, and X, this is it, Y, X, Y, and Z. You're like, oh, okay, if you ask a question or two, then you move on. Instead of like everyone say, well, what about this and what about that? I'm just saying, a large number, you can pick whatever ones, something that's gonna jump out on the page.
I think it would be helpful for us to get these slides and not just see them firsthand, but everyone else does. I think you should email them to us.
That's a good idea.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
right now, any of these that you've seen, they're also with your materials tonight, so and it doesn't help for the meeting, but tonight you could go home and look at any of these slides too.
Oh, it's on the web?
They're on the
Okay,
website.
that's good luck funding.
Yeah, so if you go under the select board meeting pages,
Mhm.
it's right there.
Okay, that's cool.
The slides.
So it wasn't there prior to our meeting tonight, that's good, or 2 hours before.
I'll,
He's adding it right now.
Double check.
He's not checking, he's adding, oh yeah, it's still in there.
No offense, but I find the website incredibly confusing.
Oh, boy, it's better than what it used to be.
Well, maybe, but I mean, if you go in, and if you're not familiar with it, and like you wanted to put in 2027 budget, it doesn't give you anything close to wherever it is that Mark is looking. And then you get into a thing where it just says minutes, no dates,
Ah,
no indication of what the minutes are for.
The search, it's everything in the entire website.
Yeah, but
That's right.
it has a thing that just says minutes.
so the
right?
naming protocol needs to be
Yes.
more
I mean-
clear, yeah.
Yes.
So if you go under select, find select board on the town website. And then any of their meetings, select board meetings, so for this week, like here's tonight, February 11th. Every night this week has attached that budget book, the 26-27 draft budget. Tonight's also has the PowerPoint slides for tonight's meeting, and then it's got the Zoom link if someone wants to attend it remotely. And then last night you see the same thing, and then Monday night, the same thing.
Do we still do the website in-house administrator, the website administrators?
Pay a company or like a initial, say, I don't say canned, but they're like a template basically.
Right.
And then a number of our people on town have ability to go in and change things. Usually about one in each department. Some departments are better than others at doing it. Probably our best person right now is planning department, because Josh, in addition to being a landscape architect, is a graphic artist. So Josh can do a lot of neat stuff.
Yeah, I was talking, not to be devil with the point, but a couple towns I've seen, they'll, you go in, I think, it was like Bodenham, something, a Bodenham, I mean, they got 9-1 to spend, but they had a great website, they got buttons, big buttons, whiteboard, documents, click, just hit it,
To be honest, I think Derek had talked about having, I don't know why I say to be honest, I'm not lying about that. Derek had an idea where he wanted, when John Chaddock left, he thought about taking that position and calling he was calling it marketing. But he said that person would do all kinds, whatever press stuff, that person maintained the website. Part of the reason Gail sees probably what she does is because we do have 10 different people that are all have little pieces of the website.
Minutes.
Yeah. Because you can search, yeah, so the search is like a Google search of every document that's ever been uploaded to our website.
So why isn't it, because that brings up a specific document. So why isn't the description there something besides minutes, gives you a date or an indication as to what it is?
I'm not gonna try to defend.
Yeah, it's not a good answer.
No, some of those.
Voting intern.
So where I was going, and actually, we did have a voting intern that cleaned up a lot of things on the website a couple of years ago. But where I was going at is when you've got 10 people all trying to maintain it, you don't have that same quality and consistency as if maybe Bodenham has one, I don't know.
What you have to be prepared for, you select persons. If you get a better, more understandable website, you're gonna have your constituents bothering you day and night, cause they'll understand what's going on. You have to be careful. You're just telling me.
Are we at a culmination point?
You guys think we are?
You done?
I think we have.
All right.
So I think we, so you want like 39%.
Well, that's
That'll work.
We pick up these chairs or anything?
Nope, they're gonna use it later for tomorrow night.
Yeah.